Okay guys, here's what we're doing today. A comparison, 2024 Lexus RX, 2024 Genesis GV80. Now you're probably wondering, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Well, it actually does make sense because at some point Lexus did offer an L version of the RX which had 7 seats in total, 3 rows. Now this, the GV80, does offer a 3rd row. I thought about comparing this against the GV70. The problem is the GV70 is so small, it's also less money than this, which didn't make any sense. If you think about TX, comparing it to that, it doesn't make sense. That's a full 3-row SUV. Meanwhile, this, it's not really a 3-row SUV, it's just an added option. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk about the differences, we're gonna take it for a drive, and today, I am bringing something new to the channel. We're including this little thing here will tell us exactly which car has the best ride, and we'll do a test for the cabin noise at the same time, talk about price and engine options. But for now, let's start with the exterior. Dimensions. The Genesis over here, it's about 194 inches long. Meanwhile, the Lexus, it's about 192. So the difference is not really huge. It's about 2 inches in comparison. The wheelbase, of course, the Genesis has a longer wheelbase in comparison to the Lexus. Now, next thing, on the outside, wheels, what do we have? 22-inch wheels with the Genesis, massive 22-inch, but these come with a big brake caliper. So you're getting a 6-piston in the front. But don't forget, the Lexus with the RX 500, I believe you also get 22-inch. With the RX 350 F Sport 3, you get 21-inch wheels, but they have included big brake kits in the front. Tech features on the outside, front end of the Lexus over here. Here's what we have. Cornering lights at the bottom, LED sharp design for the headlights, massive grille over here, really nice design, and it's got that shark nose at the end, this part over here, which I think it's quite interesting. Genesis on this side. Now, you have to admit, this thing has a presence. Massive grille, finishing chrome. We have a split headlights. We got no fog lights at the bottom, more chrome on the edges, which I really love. It looks like a proper luxury vehicle. You can't deny that. The Lexus is great, but this, it's got a presence. And when you look at them side by side, there's no question. I think the Genesis does look more upscale, especially with these massive wheels. Let's move on to the side profile. Let's talk about the Genesis. First thing is that it comes with foldable mirrors. Once you lock the vehicle, they fold. On the side over here, we have the indicator as well, which gives it that performance look, but yet luxurious. Soft closing option, something that the Lexus doesn't have with this package, and I don't believe it offers one. Overall, chrome finish at the bottom over here, chrome finish onto the door handle, same thing onto the side and the rails. Overall, the design of this thing on the side looks amazing, I have to say. I'm a big fan of the design, and Genesis is going to offer a coupe version of the GV80. It's not yet out, meaning to buy. They've already introduced a coupe version of this, which I'm very excited to see in person. Now, let's talk about the Lexus. First of all, finished in black at the bottom. The mirrors as well with chrome finish, but also blacked out. Same thing with the rails, the frame, but you still get a bit of that chrome finish. Then you have the F Sport badge located onto the side, which tells you that this has the F Sport Performance package. Now, here's an interesting thing. The Lexus does not have that soft closing option, but it doesn't have the traditional handles, meaning that you pull and the lever pulls at the same time and you open the door. This actually has a button inside. You press that and it opens the door, which I think it's still in some ways easy to use, but also when it's very cold out there, I don't know if they've done the test, but I'm assuming the engineers know that this will work in -50, hopefully. Same thing for the doors over onto the side. It's the same thing on the inside where you have to press a button to open the door or pull a lever in case if that button doesn't work. Okay, moving on to the back side, let's talk about the Genesis. First of all, we got the exhaust tips at the bottom, which kind of look like HDMI ports. Quite interesting. Split tail lights at the same time, similar to the front, but that nice flush design. I like that. And then to open the tailgate, it's located right here. You press this button and it opens the tailgate. Next thing, you got the blacked out diffuser at the bottom. It tells you which engine this car comes with, a 3.5 liter twin turbo in this case. It's a 4-wheel drive system, and we've got the nice spoiler at the top. The back of the Lexus is a bit more of a coupe version. If you look at it carefully, it's a bit more extended this way. Then we have the massive bar light right in the center. Also, this beautiful design for the tail lights. Big fan, very sharp design, sort of like a edgy, like kind of like knives, but the bar in the center, it's quite interesting. At the bottom, we have no exhaust tips in this case, but you got a blacked out diffuser, glossy black finish over onto the sides, non-functional, but that's about it. And of course, the button is located underneath here, traditional design. Now, let's talk about cargo space, and let's start first with the Lexus. The Lexus RX offers behind the second row 29.6 cubic feet of space. Meanwhile, behind the first row, 46.2 cubic feet of space. And you also notice the fact that you can automatically fold and unfold the second row seats. The GV80 on the other side offers behind the third row, if you get a third row, 11.6 cubic feet of space. But if you don't get a third row, behind the second row offers 34.9 cubic feet of space. Meanwhile, behind the first row, 84 cubic feet of space. Much more than what the Lexus offers. Also, the Genesis offers second row fold and unfold automatic option. Okay, let's jump onto the inside. Let's start first with the Genesis. One thing you need to notice that this has a button over here that you can fold the seats, for example, if you want to fold it automatically. You can also adjust the seats. You can move it forward. Essentially, the second row seats are powered, which is nice and helpful. Let's jump in. Here you go. So, what do you notice? Lots of space. In fact, I feel very comfortable in the back here. Lots of leg room. Feels a bit higher in comparison to the seats in front. We have a visor at the top, of course. You also get powered sunshades for both sides, which I think is still nice. In terms of climate, we have single climate unit for the back, but you get heated seats and ventilated seats with this package, which is quite impressive. And there's also a powered 115 volts charge at the bottom, and then we got 2 USB ports. There is an armrest in the center with 2 cup holders, and I do believe this comes with some extra space, which is nice. In terms of the panoramic roof, one thing you notice that this has a split version. What I mean with that? Well, you have the bar in the center that keeps the visors, which is nice, but then you got a full panoramic roof above that, but you can't get the entire experience because of this beautiful leather quilting, perforated leather, which I really appreciate. Then you have this Alcantara or suede finish ceiling, which is nice, gives you that luxurious feeling. And if you look carefully, we have these handles on the side if you want to have maybe your umbrella hanging there, or maybe a small bag or anything, your jacket. If you're traveling, you have no one in the back, you can just hang your jacket here. Nice finish. Now, let's jump into the Lexus. Okay, let's get into the Lexus. The first thing you notice in the Lexus is that this does have a powered recliner, but the bottom seat is pretty much set. Let me get inside. And here we go into the Lexus. You know, space, yeah, a little bit of less leg room, but headroom is about the same. Just the leg room, it's a bit tighter because this is also smaller on the inside. Other than that, tech features. We have 2 USB-C ports, heated seats and ventilated seats in the back, similar to that. A Genesis, and there's a climate unit that controls the temperature. Nice finish Alcantara onto the door panels with this Mark Levinson speaker. And to open the door, it's essentially a button. You press the button and you open the door automatically, kind of thing, like easy to use. There's a beautiful panoramic all the way across. There's no visors here, but you know, you lose some, you win some. Center, we have an armrest with 2 cup holders and then extra space, similar to the Genesis, which is nice to have. Beautiful leather interior with this Alcantara finish around here, or suede, one of those. Now, let's jump into the front, and let's start first with the Lexus. Okay, into the Lexus. First thing is that with the F Sport, this has this light that projects, or called a projector, that projects the F Sport badge onto the ground, sort of like a welcoming light, which is nice. And here we are. First thing is that this is new, meaning that a few things are new on the inside, including this massive screen. But before we talk about that, let's start it up. Power steering column, which is nice. Power seats with memory seats, which is also nice. And then we have this massive, I believe this is a 14-inch plus massive screen. It's kind of like the same size as my tablet, or actually this almost the same size as my laptop, but about that. Easy to use though. I've used this multiple times. Even the Lexus TX has similar to that. The steering wheel, we have the buttons on the right side and the left side, but you don't see any icons or anything to tell you what they do, right? Just the part over here for the driver assistant package, but then you have the volume on the left side. The difference is that the Lexus has the heads-up display integrated with these buttons. So you can use the heads-up display with these buttons here. They're sort of like haptic buttons, but they're also pressed at the same time. And then you can go in through a different menu. It offers quite a lot, and you can play around with the right side. And then the left side, same thing. You got your volume, answering phone calls, and so on. So you don't see the icons here, but they're actually on the heads-up display. That means that you would need the heads-up display for these things to function with this system, which I think it's quite interesting they've done it this way, but it seems like their customers maybe like this, which it's okay. We have a built-in GPS. This is fast. Nice user interface, easy to use, not laggy at all. You have Mark Levinson audio system, 21 speakers all around. We'll do a test quickly, but let me show you the rest of them. You got your normal, sport, eco. You don't have a button for these modes. You have to go through the system here. You got your seat control. You can fold all seats at once, which is nice. And then the all-wheel drive system telling you where the power is going the most. And your vehicle alerts, tire pressure built in, and so on. So you got different things that you can play around and more information. This is the new user interface for the Lexus vehicles. Something that you see also on Toyotas, which I think is quite nice, easy to use, not that hard. With this package, we got a full 360 camera. On the left side, the backup camera, as you can see, we have the Genesis behind us. Then, moving on to this part here is your climate unit, but you can expand that. You can change a lot of things. You got your direct air only to the occupied seats. That means it will only flow air where there are passengers. Your eco and heats, and then the de-icer, which is nice for this kind of temperature we're going through right now. It also comes with this. This is the rear view mirror camera, which this comes in handy if you have passengers in the back because it gives you the best visibility for the rear end. And of course, you can adjust that. There's different ways if you want to zoom in, zoom out, and then move the position. Also, you can do just the regular one. Moving on to the stand over here, we have two cup holders. That's your gear lever. You can use that to put it in drive mode. And then if you want to do into reverse and then into park, you press the button. Or you can also do manual mode. Go into drive and then goes into manual mode. Now, you get used to it. It's not that hard, but I'd suggest just to have a normal lever like the Toyota Tacoma had. Then you have your brake hold in here, downhill assist, off-road mode, traction control, and power handbrake. All that you need are right in the side. Behind the gear lever, we have USB ports, USB-C ports. You have 3 USB-C ports in total here, and then you have a wireless charging pad located into the center. You press that, and then your phone hides. You also have extra space into this area. We're going to connect my phone for the wireless CarPlay. In this case, because I have an iPhone, enable CarPlay, and there you go. We're going to test out the audio system. First one is essentially a classical music, and these hopefully will not get me targeted, but let's just do this one first, the Vivaldi. Now that's classical music. That will give you an idea. Now let's go into full bass mode. Here's one thing I noticed. The bass is not as hard, but it's still enjoyable. And you can adjust a lot of that thing from here. You can go into a different position for the speakers if you want to just on the driver's side. But the bass, it's not as hard. It's just almost, I'd say, about perfect in some ways. Would you agree, camera guy? It's got a hard bass, but it's not uncomfortable. You're going to enjoy, right? Okay, into the Genesis. Soft closing, which is nice. You don't have to slam the door. First thing you notice that the interior design between these two cars, very different. This got a massive screen in the center, but it's not as large, meaning that this is more, it's thinner, but longer. Okay. It kind of looks like a phone, but a large phone. The next difference is the fact that this got an ugly steering wheel that I've said before. I don't, like, what is this? Who thought about this? I don't like this at all. If I bought one, the first thing I'll do is just get rid of this. The GV70 has a better one. I like that design. This, it's like, I get it, but I don't like it. The steering wheel has a nice grip. I like the leather. It's nice. It's just this part over here, it's pretty ugly, I have to say. On the right side, you have your driver assistant package. These are buttons. And you can see some information on the heads-up display, but most of it is right there. So they have icons. You got your volume onto the side, you have your control unit for the cluster, and then on the left side you have your voice control, you have your audio system, and more information to be played. This also has different driving modes for the screen. You can play around. It actually has a proper button and a scroll one to use. If you want to put in sport mode, it changes the layout because it's a different design in comparison to the Lexus. And then you can go into snow, mud, sand, and so on, which I think is quite nice, but we don't need that right now. So we're just going to put it into comfort. Now let's move on to the screen here in the center. Now this is touchscreen. You can do this, but I like to control it through the center infotainment. I like to control it through the unit in the center, which has got this nice diamond cut finish around it and chrome and white piece. There you go. And you also have more buttons that you can play around and go back into the main menu. And here you go. This is what you see most of the time when you're driving. Shows you the weather, temperature, and so on. And then you got your icons separately. You got your map, navigation, media, radio, connected service, and so on, valet modes. And then you have the seats, which this comes with. Front seats are massage seats, which is nice. But look at that. You can control the seats in the front, the back, second row, passenger seat control. Here you go, which is quite nice. Now the seats on the driver's side, the seat on the passenger side comes with two buttons on the side, which you can control if you are, for example, a passenger in the back. That means you can essentially slide it forwards or move the recliner, which again is really handy to have in case if you have passengers in the back. I think it's pretty cool. Then there you go. But if you wanted to, we would go into massage seats. Look at that. Lumbar support, whole body, or we'll just do off. Next thing, it's called passenger talk. And what this thing is, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This essentially takes my voice from the front and it's projected into the rear side. So that way I don't have to raise my voice with people in the third row. Then you have quiet mode. Quiet mode, as you can see right there, it tells you exactly that. It doesn't increase the level of the music, but also it doesn't play music in the back. That means if you have kids sleeping, this one comes in real handy. That way you can only enjoy the music in the front. This also comes with a 360 camera. Besides that, you get a 3D version of that. Look at this. And then you have different modes for the camera. Look at this, fisheye style kind of thing for the sides, because it has a full 360 mode all around, and then you can go into the 3D mode. We have buttons for the infotainment display. At the top, you got your radio, media, and setup, and so on. And then we have another screen here for the climate, which you can control with these knobs that you see. And then you have ventilated seats, and then you have heated seats. We can also do that. You can press the seat icon. Heated steering wheel with 2 levels. There are 2 USB ports in this case, but in comparison to the Lexus, this only offers 2. The Lexus had almost 4, 3 USB-Cs and 1 USB. And then in here, we have 2 cup holders, which you can hide. Unlike the Lexus, they're always there. And then this is your control unit for the infotainment display. And then you have more buttons onto the side for the menu, home, volume, and then tune. These buttons that you see right here. And then this is your gear knob. Now, unlike the Lexus, this has a scroll mode, which is something you have seen also in Ford vehicles. And then there's a button for parking. Then you have your auto hold, and then onto the side over here is your driving mode for different terrains, and there is a camera view mode at the same time. You also get self-parking mode, similar to what the Lexus offers. We're going to connect my phone to the infotainment display and test out the audio system. This has 21 speakers by Lexicon. So let's go into setup, phone. This one doesn't come with Apple CarPlay wirelessly. This only comes with connectivity. So your audio system will be connected, but not the actual Apple CarPlay. So you have to do phone. There you go. So you have to do with USB cable. When it comes to the classical test, I find the Lexus to have a much clearer sound on the inside. It feels more, there's more clarity. This one has a lot more bass when you have it with this kind of music, with classical music. So you don't expect that. I didn't feel it. I actually feel vibration underneath my seat, which this does have a subwoofer, both sides have. But in the Lexus, I felt a bit more clarity, a softer sounds, even at high volume. It's a bit more violent at high volume. Now let's do the bass test. The Lexus has less bass than this. This has you can feel that bass. Just slightly more clarity on that Mark Levinson sound. But in terms of quality overall, you'd enjoy both sides. Okay, now that we have covered everything from space, dimensions, tech feature, we also did the audio test, and we talked about things that we don't like about each car on the inside. Next thing is to take them for a drive. And the first thing I'm going to do is use this little new tool that I purchased that I can connect to my phone. We're going to take each car on the same road, which is right there. That will give us the best vibration test. And we have unpaved and paved road. And we're going to take them exactly in the same spot to make it a more fair comparison. Let's go for a drive. Under the hood, the Lexus RX 350 uses a 2.4-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, and that engine makes about 275 horsepower, 270 horsepower or so. And then there is the hybrid one 350h, which makes 245. And then you have the RX 500h, which we reviewed not too long ago. That makes around 367 horsepower, and that is, of course, a hybrid. The Genesis on the other side uses 2 engines. There's a 2.5-liter engine, and then there's a 3.5 V6 twin turbo, which is the one that we have for today's video. And you're probably wondering, Sam, why don't you bring the 2.5 liter? Well, unfortunately, we don't get to pick, but I've driven both, and I would never pick the 2.5 liter over that V6. So I'll just cut it short. But unfortunately, it wasn't available. Also, the RX 500h wasn't available. Here's the biggest benefit in terms of drivetrain and engine options. The Lexus offers a plug-in hybrid, which is the 450h plus, and then you get a hybrid, and you also get a hybrid with a lot more horsepower, which means you get the best fuel efficiency out of the two. Especially the plug-in hybrid gives you extra range just on EV, which I think is very, very important. If you want horsepower and tuning options, maybe you just need something that makes a lot more horsepower, I'd say probably the Genesis is the best choice, because that 3.5 liter V6 twin turbo is capable to make more horsepower. It's essentially the same engine used in the other models. So it's just a bigger displacement. So you can get options to tune that thing, which I'm assuming maybe some wouldn't. If I had to put them on a drag race, I would say the Genesis would win. Not by a lot, but would win. As we saw with the RX 500h, wasn't really as fast against the Volvo that we did a comparison. Now, having said that, people are not really looking for these vehicles to be super fast. Otherwise, it would go somewhere into the German side, like an X5M competition or so. Now, let's talk about the driving dynamics. And first, the road noise. I did a test today between the two models, and we used my phone, which comes with an app that has a dB meter, which gives us an understanding of the road noise on the inside. We use the exact same road for both vehicles, doing 80 kilometers an hour, which is the speed limit. 80 kilometers would be about 50 or so miles per hour. And here's what we found. The Lexus and the Genesis, on average, were roughly about the same. The Lexus was better isolated on the inside, and I have to say, it does feel like that. The Genesis, on average, was very similar, but was slightly higher. Wasn't too far off. But when you look at the max level, the Genesis was louder. And you know what? I think that makes sense, because I've driven both of these vehicles back to back, and the Lexus feels better isolated on the inside. That's something that the dB meter proved. I thought I was wrong on that, because sometimes your ears are not really 100% in terms of testing capabilities. But the dB meter showed us that the Lexus does have a better noise isolation on the inside, especially at the max level. On average, they're roughly about the same. One thing I noticed with the Genesis, the fact that it makes a lot of that road noise when you go over cracks or roads imperfections. That thing hits the ground really hard as it goes bang. You don't feel that with the Lexus. It has a softer ride overall and a bit more enjoyable, I have to say. But you feel very low to the ground with the Lexus because it's not as tall as the Genesis. Now, when it comes to the ride quality, we did a test between the two, and as I said, we used that little tool that I purchased that shows you a lot of information like your G-force. That's the mag fields, which gives you an idea of the vibrations coming out of the vehicle. You can put it in the center, and here's what we saw. The Genesis in certain areas had a bit more stiffer ride in comparison to the Lexus. The Lexus had a bit more softer ride. We used the exact same roads at the same speeds to make sure it's a fair test. And driving them back to back, the Lexus does feel a bit softer overall. Price-wise, what are we looking? Well, let's talk about that. The Lexus in Canada has the base model, which is the RX 350. That one starts at about $63,000. That's the base model. In the US, the base model starts at about $51,000 for the all-wheel drive system and $49,000 for the front-wheel drive, because we don't get front-wheel drive in Canada for the Lexus. Now, if you had to go all the way to the top trim, which is the plug-in hybrid, that will cost you about $70,000 USD for the Lexus. Meanwhile, in Canada, for the 500H, you're looking at about $80,000, $82,000, $83,000 for the plug-in hybrid. Now, the Genesis, on the other hand, it's quite interesting because it's got two engine options. The models that are in this video are the Lexus 350F Sport 3. In Canada, this goes about $77,000. The Genesis, which is the Prestige GV80, in Canada starts at about $91,000, $90,500. Now, that's a massive difference. That's about $13,000, $14,000 difference between the two. But then the high trim in Canada for the Lexus is about $6,000 to $7,000. But that means you're getting the plug-in hybrid. The RX 500 is still less in comparison to the GV80. Understandably, the GV80 is more expensive. Why? You get more horsepower, get more space on the inside, gives you an option for a third row, which is almost $2,000 more to add the third row. But then again, the space gets reduced by a lot in the GV80. So the third row, in my opinion, doesn't make any sense, hence why Lexus got rid of the RXL. Now you don't get that option anymore. I think it made more sense, especially with the TX coming out. Conclusion. I personally like the Genesis, but you couldn't go wrong with either or. They're both fantastic vehicles and both are great options. Whichever you go for, it all comes down to which one you like and if you're willing to pay more for the Genesis. And I think that's probably going to be a big question that some people need to think about it. But I like the Genesis a bit.